The Atlantic put out an article last year, and it was called "Separating Sports by Sex Doesn't Make Sense."
Right.
And talked about how we separate sports like the WNBA and just because it's just socialization. This is insane.
I agree.
Okay. That's why people vote for Trump. Because there's stuff like that on the left that people just go, I know Trump's horrible, but separating by sports by sex makes perfect sense. And if you think it doesn't...
Bill Maher just unleashed absolute savage energy on Adam Schiff during his show. It was hilarious, shocking, and completely out of control in the best way possible.
Senator Schiff, given the ongoing political tensions and Trump's actions toward his critics, do you think President Biden's preemptive pardons turned out to be more important than initially expected? Let's first tell people what that means, preemptive pardons. That was pretty unprecedented, right? Before he left office, Joe Biden pardoned you and a number of people who he thought Trump would go after.
No, I take the opposite view. I don't think he should have given the pardons at all.
Really?
No, I don't think he should have, and I was vocal about that at the time.
Can you refuse a pardon?
That's less clear because in the case of the January 6th committee...
The comic put Schiff on blast for his double standards with a question that caught him totally off guard. The moment was quick but exploded like pure fire, so hit that subscribe button and let's dive straight into it.
This statement from the administration: the president had the constitutional authority to direct the use of military force because he could reasonably determine that such use of force was in the national interest. That's too vague for you?
Totally vague.
Okay, because that's from Obama about Libya.
Well, Obama made the argument initially that he could go into Syria without an authorization. I and many others pushed back on that argument. Ultimately, he did not go forward with going after Assad, even though Assad was gassing his own people, because he thought he might lose the vote in Congress. But I respect the fact that that was important to him. And the fact that he did not have the support of Congress meant that we weren't going to go forward.
I think it's real justice because it targets what he actually values most: money and self-interest, and going after that is one way to force accountability. This is exactly the problem Bill Maher highlights with Adam Schiff. And much of the political class, the double standard shows up instantly whenever Trump is involved. Everything he does is labeled reckless, criminal, or evil, with no room for nuance yet. When it comes to their preferred figures, the rules seem to disappear. Mistakes are excused, questionable actions are rationalized, and even major failures are defended. This kind of selective morality reveals a deep bias pretending to be judgment. And Maher keeps pressing the issue because it is not just unfair, it damages public trust. People expect leaders to follow the same rules, not a system where loyalty decides what is right or wrong, and moments like this make that hypocrisy impossible to ignore.
I think it's true justice. The only thing he cares about is himself and money. And going after the money is a way to bring about some real justice.
That's exactly what Adam Schiff had been predicting before the 2024 election. But when the results came in, he seemed completely caught off guard, acting like Donald Trump winning was some kind of fluke, while overlooking the massive loyal base that showed up in force. And it wasn't just diehard supporters or strict conservatives. Either Trump managed to pull in a noticeable share of liberal-leaning voters as well. That kind of reach didn't just secure battleground states. It pushed him to a popular vote win, something no Republican had achieved in 2 decades. Schiff's reaction ended up highlighting how disconnected some political figures can become. Underestimating Trump's influence and momentum, the 2024 election sent a clear message that no matter how confident pundits and career politicians appear, they don't always have a real sense of what the public is feeling or where the energy is moving.
I don't share your pessimism about this or your pessimism about the general election. The reason why Joe Biden is going to beat Donald Trump is because at the end of the day, America is going to want a president who is a decent human being, who doesn't shit on other people, who has some interest in the American people, some interest in something beyond himself. I think at the end of the day, people are going to reject this bigoted, divisive figure.
Exactly. Just look at the full-scale push from the Democratic National Committee and its allies to stop Donald Trump before his political rise could fully take off waves of allegations, accusations of vote manipulation, and constant warnings about authoritarianism kept hitting again and again. The strategy seemed simple: overwhelm and discredit at every turn. But despite the nonstop pressure, Trump didn't just hold on. He kept his base energized and continued to win support, which says a lot about how people actually form opinions. It shows that messaging alone, no matter how loud or widespread, does not fully control public thinking. Voters compare what they are told with what they experience in their own lives. And that gap matters in the end. Messaging has limits, and the public is far less easy to sway than many political. My strategists assume.
I'm just getting tired of seeing so much stuff targeted in his direction, but somehow, some way, he still survives. I mean, we're talking about a situation where he's still going to be the GOP nominee. He's still going to be running for president. You're President Biden. That's the individual that you're going to have to beat. 4 indictments, 91 counts. They ain't even bringing up the bankruptcies. Ain't even bringing up this particular issue with this civil case. And somehow, some way, he puts cats to shame because he clearly has more than 9 lives.
That's exactly what many Donald Trump supporters say in the GOP. They see him as direct, unfiltered, and saying exactly what he thinks, which gives a "what you see is what you get" impression. In contrast, they view Adam Schiff and the Democratic National Committee as more scripted and overly calculated, where messaging can feel polished, but less straightforward. And that difference in perception often shapes voter trust and loyalty.
The Atlantic put out an article last year, and it was called "Separating Sports by Sex Doesn't Make Sense." Right. And talked about how we separate sports like the WNBA and just because it's just socialization. This is insane.
I agree.
Okay. That's why people vote for Trump. Mm-hmm. Because there's stuff like that on the left that people just go, I know Trump's horrible, but separating by sports by sex makes perfect sense. Mm-hmm. And if you think it doesn't, you can't leave the country.
This is where things get interesting. Adam Schiff has argued that Joe Biden shouldn't have pardoned members of the January 6th committee if they did nothing wrong, raising questions about why a pardon was needed at all. To critics, it looks unnecessary or even contradictory, fueling political debate and speculation. While there's no concrete evidence of wrongdoing tied to the pardon itself, the optics keep the discussion alive. And in today's climate, unanswered questions tend to linger until clearer information emerges.
Senator Schiff, given the ongoing political tensions and Trump's actions toward his critics, do you think President Biden's preemptive pardons turned out to be more important than initially expected? Let's first tell people what that means, preemptive pardons. That was pretty unprecedented, right? Before he left office, Joe Biden pardoned you and a number of people who he thought Trump would go after.
No, I take the opposite view. I don't think he should have given the pardons at all.
Really?
No, I don't think he should have, and I was vocal about that at the time.
Can you refuse a pardon?
That's less clear because in the case of the January 6th committee, he pardoned essentially the whole committee.
That's a spicy point, especially since Bret Stephens has publicly criticized his own paper, the New York Times. When a writer questions the direction of the outlet he works for, it raises broader questions about how major media organizations operate and whether internal disagreements reflect deeper tensions in editorial judgment. Critics see moments like this as evidence of bias in big media, especially in coverage of figures like Donald Trump, arguing that negative framing often performs better in today's attention-driven news cycle. Supporters of these outlets, however, say internal debate is normal and actually shows a diversity of viewpoints rather than a coordinated agenda, though the perception of bias still fuels ongoing public skepticism.
But if this is and so the FBI came in and arrested the judge. Now, I haven't heard that, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think I've ever read arrested a judge. So is this significant?
Well, I think
I'm not going to comment on something I don't know more about than what you've just told me.
You read about it too.
Yeah, I mean, I read about it, but I don't know.
So you don't trust anything either, and you work for the New York Times.
Well,
here's where Bill Maher really drives the point home as he criticizes Adam Schiff and reflects on how Donald Trump was heavily investigated during and after his first term, with many expecting major proof of wrongdoing to emerge. Maher points out that even special counsel Robert Mueller did not establish a criminal conspiracy between the Trump campaign and Russia, which he uses to question the certainty behind earlier political claims. To critics, this contrast highlights how intense narratives can build up in politics and media, and how the lack of definitive conclusions can fuel ongoing debates about accountability, investigation limits, and public trust.
But this was our big gun. Now it just looks like you're stalking him. I think in the eyes of the people who don't follow it that closely, which is most of the country, here's the thing about Bob Mueller. He's like the last person, maybe the last thing in America that left and right agreed on. Left and right basically agreed. This is a guy of honor. This is an honest guy. This is an honest broker. Whatever he says goes. Americans are not into details. Don't read it to me, Bob. Just give me a thumbs up, a thumbs down. The fact that he was like, I don't. If you couldn't impeach before, How are you going to impeach after? Let's stop talking about Trump. We talk about him too much. We want to tell people what we're going to do for them. Healthcare, environment, those kind of issues. For example, I've seen you on TV a lot in the last couple of years. I know everything you know, or that you tell us, about the Russian situation. I don't have a clue what you think about healthcare. I've never heard it. I don't know whether you're for Medicare for all, or improve Obamacare, or get a chicken. I don't know what.
Stepping back, the back and forth between Bill Maher and Adam Schiff reflects a wider frustration many voters feel about inconsistency in politics and media shifting standards, selective outrage, and narratives that don't always hold up under scrutiny. That growing trust gap is fueling a sense that something isn't fully adding up, even if interpretations differ. And it often benefits figures like Donald Trump, who are seen by supporters as more direct and less filtered than traditional messaging. Critics argue these viral moments can oversimplify complex issues and strip away context, but they still shape public perception quickly. In the end, the real tension is between polished narratives and perceived authenticity. And as that gap widens, voters keep questioning who they can actually trust and what version of reality they believe, shaping how political influence plays out going forward. If you want more direct political coverage and quick breakdowns of major news stories, check out my new channel, Blue Check News. Subscribe, and join me there for more updates.